and I think we're live.
It's
I don't have
counting.
any background music. We don't have the
Uh,
production quality yet,
we
but we're
don't
on.
have it. Here, I'll give us an opening theme. It's the Sean and Andrew show.
It had a game show thing going on when we started. I kind of almost thought it was going to break down into
Did
like a
I was
come
I
on
was
down
going
kind of
I was going more for like like a
dramatic.
news commentary, important issues of the day being discussed right here. This is where if you want to be up on the opinions that you need to have, this is what you should be listening
This
to.
is the spot. So, we're not going to be going too deep dive into anything today. So, for anybody who's new subscribing, we're up to 114 now, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, indeed.
Um, yeah, thank you to everybody who subscribed to listen to our shit. And everyone who's commented. We've had quite a few comments over the last couple of weeks whilst I've been
Shit.
on vacation.
Shit, how dare you? Thank you to everyone who subscribed to listen to the profound musings of two gentlemen of the world.
That's right. That's right. You speak gooder and more intelligenter than many. But I've been on vacation for the last 2 weeks in Florida, so we haven't had too much coming out. I know we did a bit with Scott Peterson that came out, which I thoroughly enjoyed making that one, and we are going to come back to Scott Peterson. But I thought we'd just have a catch up on a few bits, and I'm back from Florida, and
I'm surprised. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, a lot of people go to Florida and do not come back.
And you know what? That crossed my mind. And for those of you, and you've probably heard me say it to people who've watched a lot of our episodes, I live in the UK, and I've lived here for 16 and a half years now. And I've been away for the last 2 years. So, Dixon, when I flew back, there's a few things that I was reminded of, one of which I found it fascinating, the difference between Miami and Orlando, because we landed in Miami. So in Miami, it was all masks and it was almost like it wasn't like Florida, because Florida, I thought there was no rules or regulations. It's a bit of the Wild West. And where there was people that were speaking Spanish as a first language, they were quite cautious about COVID. But then the further north you got, more towards Orlando,
more towards Alabama is really the key there.
It's that northern movement that there was a bit less protection. But I had a thought about something, and we talked about a few cases where there was guns. And one of the things that came to mind was my behavior changed because I've lived here in the UK, and what I'm now realizing is this sense of safety that I have, or I feel I have here, that I don't have in the US. And it came down to the fact that I was driving. And in Florida, if you're driving in and out of Miami specifically, it is like the Hunger Games just to like make it out alive on the freeway.
And I've never been to Miami, I must admit. That's the
Miami's
one.
incredible. Miami is incredible.
I would like to go to Miami. I would.
It's one of my favorite places to visit. But when I was driving out of Miami, there was two instances that happened where my wife said, you should have, and this is a British thing, you should have tooted your horn. And the first instance I did.
I can't imagine your wife is ever encouraging you to toot, but that's another.
My wife is a tutor.
I think you're a tutor and you toot plenty without any encouragement from anyone.
But that's different. And that's a completely different thing. But I was driving out of Miami, and the first instance, somebody pulled in front of me. It was on the freeway. We were moving at 70 miles an hour, and I honked my horn. No problems. The second instance, my wife and I had a debate because we were in sort of almost like stop and go traffic, and this person pulled in front of me with a trailer, and I had to pull back and almost go into the other lane to not get hit. And she's like, you should have honked your horn. And it occurred to me that I hadn't honked my horn because the thought that they may have a gun came into my head. Whereas in Britain, I would have just laid down on that horn like nothing else. My thought was at that stage, if I honk my horn, like it's not like we're moving at 70 miles an hour and I can peel away. We were stuck in traffic. And I just found it interesting that was the first thing that my brain went to was, I'm not going to honk my horn because they could have a gun.
I mean, I have not had the experience of living outside the United States for any kind of an extended period of time. So I'm not a huge horn beeper, but I will, deploy it on occasion. And I don't recall ever hesitating, about it. But it is an interesting point, because after the fact, once in a while, I'll think to myself, I don't know what that other guy has, I mean, I think where I'm more reticent is like, just dishing out like, one of those, like the bird, and
Yes.
saying like that. I don't really do because you don't know. You know what I mean? The horn beep is one thing. I feel like you can kind of explain that away if it becomes,
Yeah.
violent, but the dead look in the eye, which people do in traffic, right? If they get angry enough, and then the flipping the bird, that I think is too far. Because you're right, you have to be concerned about it. Every so often, you do read a story, and about a road rage incident.
Because here in the United Kingdom, I'm not going to make the case for or against guns. I'm just going to talk about my sort of as objective as I can point of view living over here, and my sense of safety. And I was talking to my wife about this after that event, and I said, in Britain, I can walk through, and I have walked through some of the worst neighborhoods in, let's say, Manchester, and it's not advisable. But gun crime here, if there's a shooting here, it is like national news. Somebody has a gun, it's a bit shocking. You can have shotguns here, you can sport shoot, but there's a lot that goes into that. I'd like in getting a gun here is probably not too dissimilar from getting a pilot's license in a way. And the thing I was thinking about, so for anybody who doesn't know, I'm 6'3", about 285 pounds. And if somebody comes at me with a knife, I don't feel like I'm dying today necessarily. I feel like if you're going to stab me, I've got a lot of distance between my vital organs. I'm a pretty big guy. I can probably keep you at arm's distance. And I don't feel like my life is at risk walking through the worst town in Manchester, the worst part of London. There's parts of Baltimore I've walked through that I wanted to get the hell out as quickly as I could. I was scared. And I like Baltimore, but there's parts of Baltimore, parts of Philadelphia, for example, that I'm not comfortable walking through. And for me, I think it comes down to, and it's just something that really highlighted to me after being away from the US for 2 years, the prevalence of guns. And again, I'm not making a case for or against guns. I'm just talking about my perceptions having lived away for as long as I have.
Yeah. I mean, it's, that's an interesting thing. Again, having never lived outside the United States. And it's very true. I guess the scaredest I've ever been was in New Orleans. I was out there for work, and we were doing some door knocking, and there was this one house sort of in the middle of nowhere with this eerie light over it that we had to go knock on. And it looked like a house, almost like a suburban house. It didn't really look like a city house, and it was relatively new construction, I would say. So the house itself, there wasn't anything particularly intimidating about it, just that it was surrounded by nothing, and that in the middle of a city, that felt wrong. And it was that dusk time of night, where it was closer to night than day, but it's not quite fully dark. And, you can just kind of like imagine all the things that might be out there. I'm walking up to this house. I'm like, how can this be? And then finally my eyes adjust to the light, and I could see that the house sits across the street from a housing project. A huge housing project that has been completely shut down and is surrounded by like a temporary fence.
Yeah.
But there could be anybody in there squatting. You know what I mean? Like it was just I'm like, I am in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by buildings where anybody and anything could be doing anything, and yes, adding the guns. I mean, when I was in New Orleans, I remember talking around the office with my coworkers, and it was just a regular thing. Everybody had been mugged. Yeah. It was just like, oh yeah, you get mugged, and not with a like a knife with a gun. Someone shoves a gun in your face, and it's just an expected part of life. I'm like, Jesus,
yeah, I know two police officers, and my father-in-law is an ex-police officer. And again, I'm going to stress this again for anybody who's going to comment. I'm not making an opinion about what I think on guns. I'm just sharing some information. And British police officers, ex-police officers, would be scared shitless of being a police officer in the U.S. And part of that's credit to everybody who's decided to become a police officer in the U.S. because it is the real deal. But here in Britain, they don't have weapons, and they're very happy. The police officers are quite happy there's not a lot of weapons out here, and none of the police officers or ex-police officers I know would want to be a police officer in the U.S. specifically because of guns. So it takes
Cops
some distance regularly. What's that?
Police officers are killed. I mean, if you look at the country, not any one location, but there's probably a police officer killed somewhere in this country every day.
Yeah, because
of the amount of guns.
It's interesting too watching and I don't know if this has anything to do. We had 3 people watching at one point, and every time I mention something that's about sort of my experience with the guns, we drop them off. So it is a very polarizing subject. But on Florida, I mean, I don't want to be harping on that. So my trip to Florida, one thing I did mention, because we weren't far from Tampa Bay. We were actually in Clearwater at one point.
I've been there. Went to see a Phillies, spring training game.
Well, we went to I thought, because we played a round of golf in Clearwater, and what was Clearwater
town.
Country Club. And in the UK, when you hear country club, you think this is a really nice golf course.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the case. Clearwater Country Club is just an all right golf course. It's very decent. And we ended up thinking, Clearwater is not that great. I hadn't spent too much time there. It's okay. But we drove to this place called Sand Key, right on the coast, and stayed at the Sheraton there. And apparently a lot of the Phillies or a lot of professional, athletes will stay down there. Okay. And it was incredible. But we were right in that area. We were only about, kind of going to the Brian Laundrie case, we were only about 20 minutes from where I guess he went camping, just down the coast a bit. And my wife and I do a lot of walking, which you may or may not know. And we went in Florida. One of the things we really love about Florida is there is a shit ton of nature reserves out there. And it made me think about this at the time Brian Laundrie was being searched for in Florida. It was on the news. How almost impossible it would be, which we know now it was impossible, to survive for any period of time in these nature reserves. And we know now that Brian Laundrie was found, his skeletal remains were found with a bag and a book. But, it made me think about all these internet sleuths who, were talking about how good of a survivalist he is or where else he could be. But just going into those nature reserves, you couldn't survive. Bear Grylls wouldn't be able to survive in those nature reserves for very long. He'd be looking to get the hell out if he was in a survival situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try it. I mean, the alligators alone down there would have me, you'd have to be mighty careful. Now, I would think, though, honestly, if you were a trained survivalist, I just don't know that I think people over-exaggerated how trained Brian Laundrie was.
I agree. I think he was not very trained.
Right. I mean, I think if you had somebody who, like a Green Beret, or, somebody who had been through, significant training of how to live outdoors for a significant period of time, so long as you could avoid the alligators, I would expect you'd be able to survive for some length of time out there, right?
Well, the only thing I have an issue with, not with that, but I mean, there's not really much in the way of drinkable water out there.
Oh, is there not?
No, it's not really. I mean, you could probably get some water clarifying tablets. I don't know. I don't think where he was. I don't know if it's salty or marshy, but it's just not a very hospitable place. But it was interesting watching. And before I left, I don't know if you saw it. I did a quick video on Dog the Bounty Hunter as well. And what I found interesting was looking back at these internet sleuths and how accurate or inaccurate they were. Because what I will say is, I think there was a lot of good that came out of this case as far as people on the internet identifying clues and information, because everybody was looking on videos on social media and things, and there was evidence that came forward. But there was a lot of wild theories into where Brian Laundrie was, and I think you and I pretty much agree. He was just a kid, really, at the end of the day.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
an evil piece of shit, but he was just an immature kid who probably wouldn't have been able to survive very long on his own anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not impressed by Brian Laundrie in any sense of that word.
And I think, you nailed it on the head when we did our first show on it. You were pretty certain that they weren't going to find him alive. You were convinced.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I still wonder, they haven't determined the cause of death yet, right, for Brian? So we don't know that he died of exposure or if he just killed himself.
I think he would have killed himself. The reason I think he would have killed himself, though, is the decision making he made in coming back. Because he had every opportunity to leave the car, catch a train, and say, we got separated. And then I don't know what happened. And in many ways, that probably for him to go free would have been the smarter thing to do.
Uh-huh.
And instead, he resigned to go back to the car, got in the car, and drove cross country to spend time with his family, and then go hiking in the woods. And to me, that is somebody who is, sort of visiting family for one last time before they head out. They've given up on hiding. They've just decided to use their time to just sort of wrap things up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I expect that he did kill himself. But since we were talking about, because like if he killed himself, then, the question of whether or not he could have survived is sort of circumvented because he didn't try. No. Like how long could he have lived out there if that were his intent.
And that's all speculation, really. I mean, just to be honest, we don't
Right.
know that he
No, we don't.
killed himself. I strongly suspect that's the case, though.
So
I
do
mean,
I.
given where he was. But it's interesting because there was one thing that came about, and it was with Dog the Bounty Hunter, and I did an episode on it. So if you want, anybody's watching this, if you go into the Gabby Petito playlist, you'll see I did a bit before I went on vacation when you were away, Dixon, on Dog the Bounty Hunter getting involved. I think the thing that was interesting to me is how little the FBI spoke, and there was a lot of method to why they weren't speaking publicly and how much they actually knew. And Dog the Bounty Hunter at one point, actually, what I'll do is I'm going to play one of these TikToks because I saved some. I jumped onto the world of TikTok for the first time in my life.
God bless you.
It's a crazy thing, TikTok. I went on. So TikTok is like I went on. It's like if you schedule time to watch TikTok, it is like a black hole of time. And it's clever because what you watch, if you spend more time watching it, I think the analytics on it then will give you more videos like that. And they're short form, like 15-second pieces.
Yes.
And
we wonder why nobody has any attention span. Go on.
But it's such a drain that, hey, JW, how's it going? It's such a drain. Yeah,
it seems like we've lost the broadcast.
Did we?
Ourselves. I don't know if that's the video or
Can you hear me?
My video is back. Now I can hear you.
Oh,
yes.
Scary. So TikTok, my experience with TikTok is you say, oh, I'm going to watch TikTok just before I go walk the dog. And then 3 hours later, you've just lost time. And you've just been flicking through videos for 2 to 3 hours. And you're just like, Christ on a bike. Where did everything go? But I started to look at
Christ on a bike. Is that a British expression?
That is. No, I think I heard that in America. For anybody watching, if you comment, if you think Christ on a bike is American or British.
I don't think I've ever heard that one before. I like it.
It's a good one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to see if I can do this right. Because I've got TikTok here. I feel like such an old piece of shit. Okay. So I've saved a few of these internet sleuth theories here that I'm going to put on the screen here. But one of which was, I think I have it. Where's Dog? I need to refresh. There was a video from Dog, and I wanted to bring this up with you because we never really got to talk about this. Here it is. So let's have a quick listen of Dog.
Out here on the island, we've been out here 4 or 5 hours. This hunt will probably last through the evening with the dogs. We got all the dogs out here. We've got a team, our greatest team, one of the greatest teams I've ever seen. Thank you very much. Aloha, we appreciate it.
So the reason I wanted to bring this one to you, because I wanted to speak to you about this. So Dog the Bounty Hunter found out that Brian Laundrie, were you familiar that he went camping with his family a week before he went missing?
I did not know that they had gone camping, no.
So Brian Laundrie comes back, and a week later, him and his family, he comes back with Gabby's van, and him and his family take the camper out to this beautiful place to go camping. So they're out camping, and this is while Gabby, I think that weekend was the weekend Gabby's parents were trying to get a hold of Brian and his family to say, hey, where's Gabby? And I think they had called the police that weekend. So Dog the Bounty Hunter, when we last spoke, we had a bit of fun talking about Dog getting involved and knocking on the door, and we were teaching you as to who the Dog the Bounty Hunter was. Did you ever see Dog?
No.
So he gets his crack team to do some research. Now it was fairly yes. Well, I'm sure he has some quality people there, but which the neighbors said that look, they went camping. So through the help of maybe internet sleuths or through his team, they were able to find the public register where they went camping, and in the register it said 3 people who were registered to go camping, and I think a dog. And then witnesses said only 2 people were seen leaving. So they only actually had witness accounts of 2 people leaving. So Dog the Bounty Hunter then searched. He was convinced that on these islands around where they were camping, so they were camping just off of the Gulf Coast on these set of islands, and he went searching. And this created a lot of buzz just before I went on vacation because people thought Dog is actually going to crack it. And what I found interesting, and the reason I made the video, was people assumed Dog knew more than the FBI because he was talking about it to the public, which really he was advertising himself. He was trying, to me, he was using this as a vehicle for his career.
Correct.
And in the end, the FBI, who had focused a lot of time on the Carlton Reserve, who got a lot of static for it, were correct. And for me, one of the things that I think people didn't pay attention to is the fact that his Mustang, Brian Laundrie's Mustang, was found parked at the Carlton Reserve. And the FBI put a shit ton of resource into looking for Brian Laundrie in the Carlton Reserve. I don't think they really stopped. And there's a reason they were doing that. And for me, what occurred to me was they probably had a lot of traffic cameras and evidence that he drove in there and didn't come out.
Yeah.
And Dog the Bounty Hunter assumed, well, because there was no witness accounts of him leaving, we're going to focus resource here. And when we look at a lot of these internet accounts, there were so many stories that people just jumped on board with without even necessarily thinking about, well, what does it mean for that to be right? And there was a lot of internet sleuths that had a lot of theories. But it just surprises me how many people bought into Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what makes Dog the Bounty Hunter an effective showman, not necessarily an effective bounty hunter. You know what I mean? People buy into him because he knows how to present himself.
Yeah. And JW saying, we did not understand at all why they were searching the reserve with all of those resources. And I think that's the point, though, because Dog, and I think what Dog was doing, JW, was he was advertising his plan, his strategy, where he was searching. And the FBI are not going to be sharing everything that they're doing and why, because they don't want, let's say, his family to know if his family were involved in let's say, aiding and abetting. And they don't want to advertise their methodology to Brian so that he can maybe,
or other criminals for that matter.
Well, yeah, I just think it's fairly standard practice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a journalist, right, you can't get with a competent police force of any type to get them to comment on an ongoing investigation. I mean, like, that's just something they're not going to do.
Well, imagine if they were to get on TV and say, Brian Laundrie is in the Carlton Reserve. We actually have video of him going in there with a gun and a backpack.
Remember, this is Florida, right? So I'm sure one thing that they were, because I'm serious, like, they don't want some posse of, like, or even some individual who, has been waiting, dreaming of opening up that gun closet and having his Rambo moment and running into the Carlton Reserve and being the one to, I think that's part of their thinking. And it's not just Florida. I mean, it's anywhere. They want the professionals to handle it. They're not going to give away the location of a suspect when they have the necessary manpower to do what they're doing. And they have been professionally trained to search and recover without, obviously sometimes it doesn't work out, but they're trained in how to go get somebody and minimize violence if that's a possibility on the table. They do not want, somebody who fancies himself Batman running into a situation trying to capture a fugitive.
And in Florida, that's the real deal, because I think if you were to tell, so when Dog was announcing where he was, as far as on the islands looking around, I guarantee there was people with boats driving around those islands trying to find Brian Laundrie. And there was people that were, I saw video of the campsite, and they already had a prepared line to anybody showing up, any news person saying, look, you need to speak to the FBI. As soon as, Dog was advertising that there was people at this campsite, there was people probably rocking up to that campsite, doing their own sort of, private investigations themselves, because it's an exciting time. There was a load of these videos on TikTok.
And the internet makes that more possible. I mean, I think that they have to be more tight-lipped than they ever were before.
Yes.
Because, you have, armchair detectives, of which, you and I do the same thing. But it's one thing, I mean, most people, and I'm sure most of our audience, would be in this group, are people who understand, boundary lines. Yeah. And it's one thing to sit around and discuss it and speculate and have your personal theories, and that all can be interesting. But it's not really my job to call up a suspect or start, trying to investigate somebody. I'm only going to cause problems by doing that. Yeah. But there are people out there, I know this because I participate in a message board with for Unsolved Mysteries fans, for example.
Oh, that's awesome. That's exactly true crime nerd right there.
And that is true. And there are people on that board who have occasionally, like, because now, thanks to Facebook, you can look at a 25-year-old case, and then it turns out like some suspect has a Facebook page. And so they start contacting these people. And it's like, God, like, you're not helping. You know what I mean? You think you're. There was even a Law and Order episode where they kind of fictionalized this concept where a bunch of online armchair detectives start harassing who they think is a suspect. They don't have access to private information. They don't have, training. They don't have even like the legal right to do some of what they're doing. So, I mean, I can understand why the FBI is going to be tight-lipped and be very careful about what information they share with the public, especially in this day and age. I see we have a comment.
Yeah, we do. And Southern Gal, his family and lawyer are in this up to their eyes.
I agree completely.
I think what I will say, if I'm going to be any diplomatic at all, and I agree with that, the lawyer really was poor in this. Their lawyer was really, really poor in how he communicated and what he communicated about. I think you could make an argument that his family, well, we don't know what his family did and didn't disclose to the FBI or what the FBI told them. I think what is poor, so let me take a step back because I'm just sort of rethinking my words out loud. I was very critical, and I'm still very critical of the family for hiding from the Petitos, even, knowing the situation with Gabby, knowing that the son was separate from Gabby and the family was calling saying, we don't know where Gabby is. I think that is the bit they're really going to be, historically looked at as just, very poorly. I'm not using the right words here. Apologies. I'm still a bit jet lagged, everybody. Yeah. But yeah, agree with you, Southern Gal, and it's going to be interesting to see how this happens, and if there's any. I wonder if they're going to have any charges on the, with regard to the parents because I don't think they can charge the parents for anything really at this stage.
Well, I mean, what they're going to look at is aiding and abetting. I didn't realize that he had gone camping with them because that kind of strengthens. Hard for them to argue. I mean, the problem is how can they know? Really, how can they? There's what you can know and what you can prove. So how will they prove? Right.
Yeah.
How will they prove that? But I mean, listen. I mean, just imagine, Nick, or some other person, in your life, were to disappear for a while and then show up like with somebody, and then show up without that person. You'd be like, well, where's that person? And I mean, like, what's this?
If I was going camping with my wife in the States and I showed up without her, it would be like, well, what the where is she? And I would need a very good reason for them to just ignore her parents calling saying, where's Nick? My mother would be like, you get on the phone and you speak to the parents and let them know what's happened.
I see JW suggesting accessory after the fact.
JW, by the way.
Well, I mean, the only issue with accessory after the fact, and again, I'm not an attorney, but I dabble, and I would think that the problem is he didn't get away with it, right? I mean, if they found him dead, I mean, it looks like he probably went into that Carlton Reserve with the intention of not coming out. Yeah. So it's not like they can't claim that obviously she was left dead, a whole country away. So they can't claim that they were involved in, disposing of the body or attempting to conceal the crime in a direct sense. And nor can they claim that they really abetted an escape attempt on his part, because, really it looks like he went one place and, knowing that he wasn't going to.
You would have to be able to prove that they knew that Gabby was, because they clearly weren't involved in, given the timeline of when Gabby passed away, they obviously weren't involved in that. Now, if let's say they knew that this was what Brian did, and they were really cool about it, at that time, then you can make a case for, aiding and abetting his escape. And I don't know if, I don't even know if that's something you can easily pursue, because how are you going to prove what they knew? You can't.
Right. Yeah.
They actually. Brian said that we broke up and Gabby's parents are, making up this story. It's a ridiculous comment, but they have no idea. They can't prove one way or the other what they knew or what they spoke about with Brian. Brian's no longer here, and you can't necessarily, convict them on your speculation and a lie detector test. I
mean, the problem is that their claim that they didn't know can only go so far, because news that she was dead broke pretty early on compared to like when they found Brian. So, they certainly knew what Gabby's fate was, and the natural question has to be, if he told them something different, then, well, Brian, how do you explain this? And if he told them what that he'd said, then obviously they knew it. You know what I mean? But either way, it doesn't look good for them. And I agree with JW's other comment.
Actually, JW, I'm going to come back to this one because I don't want to miss any of your comments. But this is a really good point here. I'm going to go back into Let's hit JW's comments to make sure that we're covering everything. And this is a really good point. How about if they helped him bleach out the interior of the van, for example? That would be, incredibly. Man, I'm really struggling with words tonight. It's early onset dementia. That would be really compelling as far as an accessory charge. And from here, we don't know whether Brian was on the run or was going to commit suicide. Maybe the articles found will give us some insight. Leaving the phone and wallet at house could be indicative or not. And that's what that was one of the things is like you leave your phone and your wallet at the house. You're not planning to survive outside of that reserve. And it's not as if you can go into that public area. I know it's a massive area, but it's not as if you can go into there and say, I'm going to start a life in this public park in the middle of Tampa Bay or in the middle of Florida.
Yeah.
You go in there with the idea of, I'm going to chill out and then just take some time and then come out and just, fess up, or I'm going to go in there and I have no plans to come out. And I'm fairly convinced that was the case.
I mean, this is all speculative, but, I tend to believe that as well.
You got it, JW.
And, I guess I just say that, I take JW's point that if indeed the parents did help bleach out the van, that certainly, if they can prove that, that's an accessory. The only issue is that, he didn't get I guess that's still accessory for trying to cover up the crime, but it seems like the cover up stopped at that point. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, and it wasn't effective. And I also agree that the attorney out there, for them, just like Dog the Bounty Hunter. I mean, this type of thing brings these kinds of people out, right? People who see an opportunity to be in the middle of something, have some publicity, who aren't, whose motives are not pure as the driven snow.
Well, this was. I saw somebody mention that this lawyer was very reminiscent of Jose Baez, who was Casey Anthony's attorney, who he didn't even have a lot of trial experience. He had to be helped through that trial quite a bit. And the problem with, historically, if you are attaching your name to a big case and you find any sort of success or notoriety, you've just increased your value. You've increased your billable hours, or how much you're charging for your billable hours.
Yes, indeed. So.
And this is somebody who probably can, privately argue that, I bought the Laundrie some time and they're now living their life in Florida, even though that there's some real critical things that could have come to pass.
Yeah, I mean, it won't hurt him any, that's for sure.
No. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people that, I don't know if you noticed that there was people when the FBI had a press conference where they were confirming that they found a body and they found a bag and a book that they can link to Brian Laundrie. They were. This is something I don't understand. What's that?
I wonder what the book was.
It was a notebook. He was.
Oh, okay.
He was. He was somebody that I guarantee wrote poetry. I would bet money he was a poetry writer, and so he was wasn't his Instagram page. It was like a tattoo artist. Like he had tattoo art on there.
Okay, sure.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but
I once she was found and it was obvious that he was guilty, I have to admit my close following of it was less, because it became just a manhunt.
Yeah.
And I felt confident that based on where he was last seen and where he was going, he was either going to be found dead or alive, but that it wasn't going to be long. And,
well, let's have a look at a few of these TikToks. I sound like such an old guy. So these are ones that were theories that people were coming out with left, right, and center. And some of them I thought, maybe at the time. I'm not going to be critical of people that were wrong about things, because we were wrong about things. But it's what they were wrong about and how easy it is to really, dismiss or approve. So let's listen to the first one here I found.
All right.
Then when you get up on Powerline Trail, it turns into Carlton as you get about a mile west. Okay. So anyway, I know the neighbors there. They all walk their dogs every day. I ride my bike there every morning, every single morning. He was never. There's no, because if you go into the power lines, that's the only way you can get in that area.
Yeah.
They have CCTV. FPL has cameras up. And then when you get up,
So this is, I looked at this and I thought this whole thing is dumb. It's got 2.1 million views. It's got a hell of a lot of likes, and everything about this is so contradictory. This video, because this is a guy who has no information to be able to make a judgment. He also, if anything, proved as to why the FBI were investing so much time into the Carlton Reserve, because he mentioned there were CCTV cameras. This is a dumb video in my view.
Florida Power and Light. Yeah.
Out of 10, I give this a 2. And he's a neighbor. I think he's just hanging out at the house to get his face on TV.
Yeah, I mean, like this guy standing in the middle of the road with his shorts and his flip flops and his shirt. This guy looks like an expert in what he's talking about. And the incongruous playing of, I guess, Under Pressure there by David Bowie.
This is TikTok. This is TikTok. I think you can just play that shit. Yes. I don't understand TikTok. I'm starting to get involved in it, starting to see it, learn it. We had a comment.
No,
from
this is
Southern Gal.
Oh, this is your typical, man on the street thing. That's all it is. Yeah.
This is some dick who's just giving an opinion that's worth nothing.
No,
Southern
this
Gal
poor guy.
says you can get DNA out of pulp of the teeth, and Brian also had a distinctive underbite. I worked in dental for 30 years, which is interesting. I bet dental records were sort of the primary driver to, I guess they were able to identify Brian pretty quickly. And I bet dental records were the first thing if they found skeletal remains.
Usually.
So let's talk about that underbite, because I think there was a video here that referenced the underbite in a very weird way. So this one is not in any way useful. But I found
is anything on TikTok useful? Is its point to be useful, or is its point to be entertaining?
I think it's more entertaining. Let me find. Is this the video? Yeah, I think is this it?
This is a photo of Brian Laundrie
Yes,
on September the 6th.
I thought
the
this
day
one was
he went
decent. So
camping at
I thought
Fort-
this was a decent one. That doesn't mean that it was right or it was good, but I thought this was a better standard here.
A photo of Brian Laundrie on September the 6th, the day he went camping at Fort DeSoto with his family. His sister Cassie Laundrie has now spoken to the media, and she also released these photos to the public. This man does not look sad. He definitely doesn't look like he just murdered his fiance. He's just living his life while Gabby is laying on the cold ground. Only a monster would do that. Here's the clip from Cassie Laundrie.
There was nothing peculiar about it. There was no feeling of grand goodbye. There was nothing. I'm frustrated that in hindsight, I didn't pick up on anything. It was just a regular visit.
By the time Gabby was found, 13 days later, Brian had already vanished.
I thought that was a good one. I thought that was a really well done TikTok because it wasn't making any bold claims. And I thought it raised a really interesting side of the story that I hadn't seen from his visit, his camping trip, the time he spent with his sister and kids. And to see this picture for me really made me think.
About what?
Well, it made me think of it or put it this way. This is somebody who's murdered his girlfriend a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's ignoring his. So if you have any shred of humanity, which he clearly doesn't, he's ignoring his fiance's, or now his ex-fiance's parents, who are in agony, not knowing where she is. And this dickbag is sitting here just smiling away as if nothing's happening, spending time with family, and to the point where the sister thinks this is just another visit. And I thought it was just a really compelling point to make as to who Brian Laundrie is, what his mentality was.
I mean, listen, there's no doubt that Brian Laundrie is a son of a bitch, right? I mean, he murdered his fiance. He's that's a terrible thing to do, and terrible person. I have to say, let me give you, to step back and give an example, right? I've watched, and I'm going to refer to my favorite 80s television show, Unsolved Mysteries, right? And the type of case that they would profile on there frequently, a category of case would be the authorities have labeled this a suicide, but the family insists it's murder. Yeah. And inevitably, in every one of those cases, you get the family saying like, oh, so and so would never have committed suicide, wasn't that kind of person. I saw so and so a week before and they were perfectly fine, they were smiling, they had plans, they did this, they did that. And the more, and you hear this too about like, a lot of these exonerations that happen now from people using DNA who are on death row for crimes, in the pre-DNA era, how would they determine someone's guilt? Well, they didn't act like they didn't act like an innocent person. Their reaction, I mean, think about Darlie Routier, right? Not saying that she's innocent, but we both agreed that video and using that video as a determiner of her guilt or innocence of her at the gravesite with her children was nonsense, right?
Irrelevant,
really. I would put that in the same category here. Like, I don't think, yes, he did it. I don't think there's any question about that. But does the fact that people are weird, people have this ability to compartmentalize, I don't know that this proves to me the fact that he could go with his family and not say anything. You don't know what was going on inside his head. Maybe he's dying.
No, that's not. I think that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I find it so if I'm judging this, if I look on the scale of things, because the next thing I'm going to show you the opposite end, the sheer insanity and stupidity. And as I'm exploring TikTok, I'm finding there's things that are actually pretty good and things that aren't good. And I found this to be a thought-provoking video that gives me an insight. So when you're learning about people like Brian Laundrie, it's not just about learning as to whether he's innocent or guilty, but it's trying to understand his mentality and who he is as a person.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I don't think that this TikTok is sharing to me anything that I find particularly profound. She's looking at a photograph of him and saying, what a monster, because he's smiling in a family photo. And I'm saying, like, he could be right there in that moment, playing the role of the good son, having his family time, knowing in his head, probably because, this is a common phenomenon. If you read about suicides, that people in the weeks before they actually commit the act, when they've already made the decision that they're going to, will often, like, people will say, they seem like they had been depressed, but they seem like they were coming out of it. They seemed happier. And what they find is that once people have made the decision and now are preparing to carry out the act, they have sort of had a break in their head where, like, good, I know that the problems that have made me feel depressed, or the thing I think I'm running from, isn't going to be a problem for me anymore because I'm going to kill myself. So now I feel better. So there's like this false joy that can be read, that can be seen in the expressions of people who are going to kill themselves, not because they murdered their girlfriend, but because whatever, they're depressed or whatever. I'm just saying, like, I don't think, like, this is like the obvious conclusion to draw from this. Look, he's smiling in his family photos. What a son of a bitch.
I don't watch everything simply to get, like, it's not an exercise in investigating. It's more of a psychological study, or more of a voyeur. You're a fly on the wall, knowing now what you know. I look at the pictures of not so much this. Can I mute this? Oh my God, I'm so bad at TikTok. It's, looking at these photos, to me, I put myself in the mindset of the family, and, I just found it fascinating seeing these pictures, knowing what I know now. We're jumping ahead a bit too much.
Well, and then maybe this is where you and I are having a disconnect, because to me, I'm judging the TikTok video as a TikTok video. The pictures are not from the TikTok pictures, are not created for the TikTok video. This woman has taken those photographs and created her own content with them. I'm saying I don't find her content compelling. The pictures themselves, like, I don't think that what she added to it adds anything. I think what the pictures are interesting enough. I take your point, but as a video, so what? You know what I mean? So, like, random girl on the internet is going to sit there and say, "Aha! This proves what a monster!" Like, yawn.
I think you're looking into it too much. I think you're looking into it too much.
No, I don't think so.
I see her just raising something. So let me put it this way, then.
I'm judging the video. I'm judging the like, are we judging the TikTok video? Because the last thing we did was look at that TikTok video. I give this video a 2 out of 10 because random Yahoo is offering his commentary. Now I'm looking at this one and I'm saying, again, this is random Yahoo. And I mean, hey, we're random Yahoo. So, I mean, I realize I'm in a glass house here, but nevertheless, I don't find that as a video compelling whatsoever. I would not like her channel. I would never look at anything that she ever did again.
So I'm going to take the counter. So I don't know who she is, but I'm going to take the counter and say, it made me, I had to stop, and I just thought about that for a while. I just looked at those pictures, and that's just who I am. I looked at those pictures and I thought about the scenarios and the conversations that were happening. It made me stop and think. So for me, I'm giving it value for that. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 2, just like
All
the
right.
other one.
We can disagree. I'm going to get to some of these comments here really quick. So, and this is a good one. Anytime you say I agree, Sean, you're going to get, I'm going to read that thing out. That clip of Cassie.
JW, you're banned from the channel.
No, JW, you're promoted.
No.
So, that clip of Cassie and her photos is valuable. Cassie does not appear to. So this is regarding the last video we looked at. Cassie does not appear to be being truthful, especially in the light of the info that has come forward since September the 6th. And which clip was? I've already forgotten what clip that was. I'm getting old. Jesus, good God. The jet lag is killing me. But thank you for agreeing. What was the thing we just looked at? Have I gone absolutely bonkers? Oh, it was the guy. Sorry. Thank you. I think it was the Cassie thing that threw me off. Yeah, that was a useless video. I agree. If you pull that pic, and we're looking at that picture we were just looking at, there's a snapshot. He has bruises all over his arm. And actually, Southern Guy, I've done that. I'm going to bring that up here, which is, I think that's an interesting catch. And yeah, he does have quite a few bruises.
Yeah, I know the photos are interesting. I'm not commenting on the photos.
Listen, we moved on from the TikTok, Dixon. It's done.
Okay, all right.
We decided that I made a better point.
No, we decided. We decided.
My dimension. So yeah, I didn't even notice that. And it's for me, it's a brutal thing to see because you can only imagine how those got there, and there's no good answer to that. Let's see here. And I wasn't aware of that. So we have Steve W. Remains found at Brian Laundrie's search site are skeletal, or as they say in Britain, skeletal. Include part of
skeletal.
Yeah, they say skeletal over here. Include part of human
skull.
Like sources partial.
They don't say skeleton, do they?
What's that?
They don't say skeleton, do they?
I don't think so, but I'll bring that up. Sources, partial human remains along with backpack and notebook believed to belong to Brian Laundrie were. Oh, we got cut off, Steve. Oh, here it is. Discovered at Myakkachi Creek Environmental Park. Partial skull. He means he was chomped by gators. Probably. It's
yeah.
I think that maybe after
that's a fitting
as well.
That's a fitting end. JW asked why. I think in reference to why banned from the channel because you didn't agree with me. That's why.
Yeah, but I think she's also asking why are you not seeing the value in just that presentation? I thought it was all right. I think you're judging TikTok on the scale that, let's say, the Oscar committee is judging.
I'm not judging on no Oscar committee. I'm judging what the woman said and the content that she added. Jeez, listen, I'm not again. Glass house can't throw stones. We don't exactly have Oscar quality production values here. That's not the point. You got to say something interesting.
I need to shut up. That's very true. So let's. Here's the next one. Now this was my favorite one. This sort of goes down the route. This is my Walker Texas Ranger example. It was so bad that I loved it, and I was amazed at how many people bought into this idea. Okay. First, let me ask if you were familiar with this. I'm going to play this long form one.
Oh God.
Where's hold on. Oh man, I'm just like my grandfather, for Christ's sakes. I muted it. Hold on. Here we go.
Hey TikTok. So if you look, you can absolutely see here that this is what it looked like when officers were actually in the home looking around for things, and they had the warrant to come in and look for whatever they wanted to take out of the home. This is what the backyard looked like. This was an aerial view from one of the news channels that were circulating the house. You can see the crime tape over there. This was during the...
So we've got that view. I'm going to jump to another TikTok because this is what it's referring to.
Brian Laundrie caught hiding in his parents' garden bed in family's backyard. Notice how his parents walk away when they notice they're being watched. Brian handing his mother a note. Brian.
So let's go back to the other one. I wanted to.
They're claiming he's buried under the dirt and is handing the note up through the dirt.
Let it go. Let's let it run. Here, let me get up to where we were.
An aerial view from one of the news channels that were circulating the house. You can see the crime tape over there. This was during the investigation. Hold on, and I'll show you one that actually has officers in the photo to show you that is new and wasn't there. Woo! whoops. Here is a photo of right here. It shows you all that bed and everything is all redone, changed up. Here's officers right here that were doing the investigation. Y'all, absolutely, that is a hand coming out of that. You cannot convince me otherwise. And tomorrow is my birthday. And if there's one thing that I hope that I get on my birthday, it is that Brian Laundrie's ass is found. That is my one wish. Just know tomorrow when I blow out my candles, my one wish is that they nail his ass. And
I'm going to stop it there. We've seen enough. So, yeah, you haven't heard the
Brian Laundrie developed the ability to live underground.
So there was people that believe, yeah, did they crocodilo? Did they compost him in the garden? Crocodiles. I think it was crocodiles, alligators.
So wait, what's the theory? If we're not being crazy that his parents killed him and then or let him commit suicide, they buried him in the garden and then dug up his corpse, dumped it in the thing, and then let the FBI find it there.
No. So what they're saying is there's an underground bunker of some sort. Let me find something here that I saw that I thought was a funny sort of follow-up. But somebody had theorized that he was under some sort of underground cellar or something that the Laundries had either built or had already in place. And there was millions of people on the internet, and there was a load of TikTok videos, Facebook, YouTube videos, where they claimed that there was a hand where he was underneath this sort of bunker cellar thing under the garden. And I'm going to
need to see a much larger video or larger photo. I don't see anything that even remotely. First of all, this is Florida.
Garden.
You know, like the entire state is like 3 feet above sea level. You know what I mean? Like,
let me find an image here. Okay, so here's an image. I'm gonna hold on. I don't want a video. I just want an image. Well,
the GoFundMe.
Let's here. I got a video
of his with the altercation with the. Was the question. So yeah, again,
where is
Brian?
This is where our production quality is terrible.
Yeah, we need a producer.
We need a producer. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Maybe this is a better. I'll just do this. Can you see a hand there? Is that evidence enough for you, Dixon?
No. It's a shadow.
Exactly right. That's the right answer. It's the dumbest thing I've seen.
Like, I'm looking at these two side by sides. One says not there, one says there. It's the same picture. Oh my god!
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous to say the very least. So that was my favorite bad. Let me see. Well, here we go. Well, it would explain the hand if you need an explanation. Very true. Oh my god. It's ridiculous.
I mean, that would make a good Halloween, like horror movie thing. I grant people that, but you know, underground man rises up, strangles girlfriend, descends back into Earth.
It's the fact that people bought into this. I mean, what do you have? You have to suspend the police had gone through there. I don't know how many times. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, just for shits.
Well, listen, I don't want to, you know, become all cynical on our channel, but you know, there are a lot of people out there who can buy a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. Just, I'm sorry, but it's true. You know.
It was just terrible. A terrible one. So this one now, I saw this one. So this is by a guy called Kid Behind the Camera, and he got his notoriety, I think, on YouTube because he was making these angry grandpa videos with his grandfather, who sadly passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This guy's a bit of a clickbait. I remember watching him a few years back, and he's the king of clickbait. And right away jumped on this Brian Laundrie thing and found a video of a police helicopter. And he didn't find it. I think there was hundreds of people that probably shared a video similar to this. But I'll share this one next. Let me make sure it's unmuted.
I haven't really been keeping up with the whole Brian Laundrie thing, but I was watching Fox News earlier, and they were searching for him.
Strike one.
And it just...
Yeah, he was watching Fox.
Running. Look right there. Is that a bird or is somebody running from the cops?
It's a bird. It's so obviously a bird.
There.
This is right on the level of the,
There's
you know,
somebody
the
running
midget who
for-
hangs himself in the Wizard of Oz. You know, people swear that they've seen that. Oh, and then when it's not there, oh, they cleaned it up. You know, it was originally there.
There's two examples. One of which is the like you said, the monkey or the person, the midget that hangs himself. And the
Yeah.
other one, the other sort of Easter egg, which actually I think was a plant, was in Two Men and a Baby, Three Men and a Baby,
Oh yeah. The ghost of the kid with the gun in the background or
which
whatever.
actually was a plant, and that wasn't it like a cardboard cutout of something.
Yeah, it was like a promo for another movie. Yeah.
So that
Listen,
was another one.
I
that
can't
was-
get with this guy at all. He's dyed his hair blonde. That's strike two. And, you know, and those graphics that he's using, that's strike three. You're out, dude.
So here's the last one.
Uh-huh.
This one was disproven quite quickly, but people believe that Brian's Instagram account had advertised his whereabouts.
Before we even watch this, can I ask something about this TikTok? What is with this people like making themselves sort of appear in the middle of these photographs? I don't get this.
So this is an old person's conversation now.
Yes,
so
it
on
is.
TikTok, you can make videos that are short form in selfie.
Yes, I understand
format,
that. I understand that.
You can put as I have here a green screen. You can use the phone's
yeah, but like, see how you've done it is you look like you're sitting somewhere legitimate, you know what I mean? But you like she has herself floating in the middle of the water. I mean, like,
this is the presentation. People
awful.
It's TikTok. This is TikTok.
Okay.
Welcome to the world of being an old person, my friend.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear what this floating head has to say. Ooh, I liked it. Shit.
It appears that Brian Laundrie is still alive. Yesterday on his Instagram account, it accidentally went live for 2 to 3
I want to add the Jaws theme to this video so badly.
You know, that is a thing you can do on TikTok. You can put music to the background. And
then I want the shark to come up and swallow her little picture.
But this one was a joke because to me, not a joke, but this was easy to check. This was very easy to corroborate. You need a TikTok page.
Apparently. Yeah, easy. So he's still alive. Why is he still alive? He's in a boat somewhere?
He was in a boat somewhere, and they were saying that he accidentally broadcast live on Instagram, and there's a bunch of people that shared this, but it was somebody who was dicking about. It was a different video. Somebody found that it was a video not related to Brian Laundrie, and they were saying, he's by the water, he's in a boat, so he's nowhere near the Carlton Reserve, he's somewhere close to the coast, which it turned out not to be even true. So I think this, we'll see what happens with this. We're not going to spend too much time on this. I think there's just one other area we're going to be picking up, moving on. So if you're here for the Brian Laundrie content, we will be moving on to one other point that I want to raise before we wrap up. But we'll see what happens with this one. As far as if anything further goes ahead, if we're going to, here we go, Dixon. You're going to like this comment, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You have
Baby shark doo doo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that would be good too.
Well done, Coco Drillo. Is it Drio or Drillo? I'm gonna go Drillo. So we'll see what happens with it. I'm curious. I really hope the FBI releases what they found, and hopefully, if let's say the book they recovered was legible, we can see what's in it. I'd really love to know what was in that book. And I think the one thing that sadly is going to be the case is, there's a lot of people chanting justice for Gabby, and I understand why. It's a very difficult world we live in, and this is just one of those cases where justice is not going to be served in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's sad, but that's true.
So we're going to transition. It is a bit of a legal one. I want to transition to a different piece, Dixon, and to anybody who doesn't want to be here, it's perfectly fine for this, but if you want to stick around, there was in the UK. So I work in the UK, and I'm part of the National Health Service. As far as I'm not part of it, but I get medical care from the National Health Service, and we have this whole COVID thing. And we had this video that kind of went viral over here of these two gentlemen who were serving the NHS with legal documents. They were suing them because of the pandemic. And I just wanted to get
Did you say pandemic?
I said pandemic, yes. And I just
let me tell you, I'm on the school board here, as you know, in my hometown where I live, your hometown as well. And we have been sued. I am named in a lawsuit. Oh, my parents in the district. because we have a mask mandate in our schools. Now, I should hasten to add that in districts that do not have a mask mandate, they have also been sued by parents who want one. So it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, you know. However, the ones who are suing their districts in favor of the mask mandate are winning in court versus the ones who are suing, you know, to repeal the mask mandate are losing. I mean, really, the bottom line is, as a school district, you know, we have the ability to impose a school uniform, right? So, I mean, what is a mask but other than an element of a uniform? And nobody would question our ability to impose a uniform. So, what do I think of this? I think that this is just, you know, I mean, I get it. I get that the pandemic and specifically the mandates that come with it are pressing people's buttons about the reach of the state and the sense that, you know, there is like that they don't have authority over their own lives, that there is somebody who can come in and tell people what to do, and people don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
At least there is that people out there who really resent it. And so I'm sure this is just a manifestation of that.
Well, it's on a sort of on a sidebar from that. When we talk about those mask mandates, again, being in Florida last week, one of the things that was highlighted to me, I know people that work at Disney, and with that, I think there was a story, was it a month ago, where the governor was going to stop the pay of superintendents who imposed a mask mandate.
Mm-hmm.
Am I accurate in that?
Sounds right. I mean, he was going to do something like that.
Yeah. And the thing I found interesting was Disney has employed throughout the pandemic epidemiologists to set their guidelines as far as what they do and do not do. And Disney has been very mask heavy. They've been very sort of they pretty much followed the science, as many countries and many states have done. And I found it interesting that Disney, you know, they've maintained a mask mandate to guests, to staff. There's no questions, and they will throw you out of the park the second you take your mask off in areas where you should have it on.
We started talking about this prior to the show going live, and I think if you look into it, because I've looked into it, and if my recollection serves, Disney actually has special jurisdiction inside the state of Florida. Like, they're not part of any town or township. Like, they run that place, like on a legal level, they run that place.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, like, and listen, Disney, I don't know what percentage of the economy of Florida Disney World accounts for, but it's enough that Charlie DeSantis ain't fucking with them. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Well,
and Charlie DeSantis ain't going to sell them anything.
They're like the Godfather, you know, they do what they want. And Ron DeSantis isn't going to say shit to them about how they run their business. And I'm going to read the comment. I don't agree with it, Coco, but I'm going to read it anyway. We can talk about it. Not going to go there, and we don't have to go into this big mask thing, but unless you're using real N95 masks, it's totally useless. All I'd say is in the UK and in countries where they've had masks, the transmission has been way down. And the second they removed masks in the UK, transmission went way up in periods where normally it would go down. The data doesn't necessarily say that because it's preventing you from breathing that out. I'm not going to get into that conversation, Coco. That's my opinion. You have your opinion. Dixon, do you want to say anything on it?
I mean, I'm not a scientist, so
no, I'm not.
But I'm prepared to basically, you know, with masks. I think that I just, you know, from what I've read, it's sufficient to make me believe that a mask is more useful than nothing.
Yeah, but that's Coco. Appreciate the comment. I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. But I wanted to make sure we read out all the comments as we said we would. But this is a little bit different. I think, Coco, you could probably get maybe more on board with this because we're talking more vaccination stuff. And the reason, you know, we are true crime, and I appreciate this is a stretch, but you know, this is a legal matter. So I'm gonna give myself a bit of a luxury because I want to talk to you about this. You want to watch this video with me? You haven't seen it.
No, I haven't. Of course not.
Let's watch away.
Let's watch away.
I don't need to give you my name. However, we have liability and witness evidence to serve to Nick Holmes, who is your chief executive, as well as all of the other governors and all of the other chief executive officers of Colchester Borough Hospital. I will be serving you today. Nuremberg Code, if you'd like to take that.
So right away, he just sounds like a bit of a dick. I mean, he's already annoying.
Yeah.
I'd like you to take it. Someone needs to take the documentation to accept it. Yes,
you do.
Legally bind it.
Notice everybody in there. I guarantee not a single person is a lawyer. Not a single person. But I could be wrong about that. And thank you, Coco. It's legally binding.
For the citizens of this country.
Yeah, we've had a lot of pretend lawyers show up to our school board meetings and start advising us on constitutional law. And, you know,
the first thing is cited. The first document is about the Nuremberg Code.
Yeah, I thought I heard that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how the Nuremberg Code has anything to do with the National Health Services and other elements of the British government's ability to control the health standards of its own nation under it. Like, you know, the Nuremberg Code is about international, you know,
testing or something. Like Germany was testing on people or something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, the judgment, like the Nuremberg trials were about after World War II. So I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, are they trying to claim that this is, well, if it's a pandemic, I suppose that is the claim, right? That somehow that this is a chemical warfare or, you know, something like that.
So he was insisting. She just picked up the documentation because she's just tired. You know, just come on, get out of here. I'll hold it for you.
Which is all about the other UK Alliance of Medical Freedom of Alliance. Panda Declaration for the Protection of Children. Right. Moto Proprio, you've probably not heard this one, but you guys all have liability. You believe that you can hide behind the NHS if you can't be held in your personal capacity.
So is this like have you ever been served or been around anyone who's been served? Is this how it works?
Well, I've never been personally served, but like, for example, I'm on the school board and yes, there is no personal liability. So once again, the, you know, Clarence Darrow there.
We'll talk about who he is, because I looked up who he is.
Okay.
And he stripped your liability in 2013. So the excuse of I'm accepting it on behalf of the NHS doesn't count. So there's that one.
Listen, I hate to say this, but the guy in the military jacket's a dead giveaway. There's something not quite right.
He should have wore a suit.
Yeah.
He wore a hoodie. This is like, for him, this is the biggest, you know, we're serving the National Healthcare Service legal documentation to expose this pandemic. I'm going to wear my olive hoodie today.
Yeah, my fatigues, right.
Absolutely, folks, that you are operating illegally and you are committing crimes against humanity. And by continuing to enforce and to continuing to propagate this lie, you are essentially a part of that. The Nuremberg Code should tell you that, though, because they have the same.
JW has a good question here, which I assume you're going to answer by telling us who these jokers are, because he's exactly right. You have to have standing to file a lawsuit. Now, I guess they're going to claim their standing is that they're citizens or subjects of Her Majesty the Queen, and that they're doing it on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Nations or whatever.
So this is a public building, I think. You know, it's the National Healthcare Service is effectively a government-run healthcare service. And I think they have a right to, well, they have a right to be there. And I think they were given freedom to be able to present their case and get the hell out because they were doing so peacefully.
Yeah, but I mean, like standing there and handing all over a bunch of cookie pieces of paper is one thing. Yeah, what's your standing to actually file a lawsuit is another question.
I don't think they have a standing to file a lawsuit. I think they're being humored so that they can get the hell out as quickly as possible.
I totally understand that. Like a couple of sort of unstable people show up with a bunch of quasi, you know, things that they obviously are passionate about and feel that, you know, deep in their souls that they're right about, and you're sitting there going like, yeah, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think it works at the end. Coco, we'll get your comment in a second.
All of this will be served via Royal Mail as well, and it will be followed up upon by lawyers. I suggest you get your lawyers to have a look at that because it is all legally binding paperwork. So you've officially been served that paperwork today. Thank you very much for being so amicable and taking that. And if you could pass that on to him, we will be obviously following up as well. All right.
So this to me, one thing that I thought about with this is it shows that she could have stood there and argued with these people, you know, giving her opinion, or
you absolutely don't. You absolutely don't do that, especially if there is an actual order, which I am going to go ahead and assume that there is. If you're an employee, you say thank you. I'll we'll share this information, and that's it. That's all you do.
It's okay to have a conversation, and Coco, we're going to get into this probably conversation in a second. We don't have too much more time here for this broadcast, but there's people that you can have a conversation with, you disagree with, even if let's say there's people that I know that I find their views kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say objectionable, but I don't quite understand how.
But you're not representing the national health. I mean, I'm saying these employees are doing the right thing. Like you don't, you don't engage at all with this. You know, you don't, you're not rude. You don't engage. I mean, if you as like a, or me at the bar, whatever, that's one thing. When you run into somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's the situation was diffused and they moved their way out. And I guess the question is, what Coco's asking, what is your opinion on vaccinations? And I think at the end of the day, and we'll go to Southern Gal as well. My personal opinion is it should be left up to the individual. My husband did have COVID, but I'm not vaccinated. It should be a choice, but be safe about it. I mean, for me, it was no question in my mind getting vaccinated. So I don't think anybody should be forced to be sat down and a needle stuck in their arm. But at the same time, the military mandates vaccinations. If an employer wants to mandate vaccinations, if a concert or a restaurant only wants vaccinated people, that's fine. I can understand why. I think that the issue comes, and this is where we have a bit of a challenging conversation, is there is a threat, and this is dependent on what you believe, that if, let's say, the virus keeps spreading, it's going to morph and we're going to have this eternally. And my hope is that, like many countries, people get vaccinated, because the thing I find ironic when I was in the States, and what I'd forgotten about from being away from the States, is the medical ads. So for instance, there's a lot of ads for medication that'll give you anal leakage and possible death or whatever. And a lot of the people that are saying, no, I don't want to take a vaccine, I don't believe it's safe, despite the fact that it's like 99.99% safe. There's less side effects that are confirmed and instances of death with the COVID vaccine than quite a lot of the medications that those people are taking. The side effects aren't that dissimilar from any medication. And I don't understand that.
I mean, here's my, I think I agree with Southern Gal, if I understand her correctly, that I would stop short of the government. I think this is very similar to the free speech thing, right?
Yeah.
The government does not have a right to tell you what opinion you may and may not have. And so similarly, I would be very loath to see the government as a government telling you as a private citizen that you must get the vaccine and be forcibly vaccinated in that way. However, as you said, Sean, that only is your relationship to the government as a citizen. As an employer, the government can certainly mandate that you be vaccinated, as any other private employer can. And, it doesn't extend to private space, right? So like as a business can say no shoes, no shirt, no service, they can say vaccine or no service. And so I think what ends up happening, therefore, is that for most people, the convenience, I mean, just as you can't, like, you have freedom of speech, right? But you see these people occasionally will get on Facebook and they'll say some horrific thing, they'll go on Facebook and, drop N-bombs or make other racial comments, and then they get fired from their job and they wonder why. Well, if your Facebook page is only you and it's not like if you've kept it private and all that, but if you've put who your employer is, now you've associated yourself with your employer, now you're representing your company, even if it's not your, an official company page, and your company, you don't have a freedom of speech with your company. You don't have a freedom of speech with your employer. You have it in the sense that the government can't come and arrest you for saying those things. By extension of that principle, I don't think the government should come and force you to be vaccinated. But I think every private business and every, employer has a right to demand what they demand of their employees in this regard. And I guess the only other thing I'd say about this is, and this is the way, I think at the end of the day, I truly do not understand at all the reluctance to be vaccinated by people. And the way I look at it is this, in 1916, my grandfather's mother, so my great grandmother, died of whooping cough. And my grandfather was a 6-year-old boy. And as a direct result of that, he wound up being sent to an orphanage and really had his childhood completely ruined. He never got past the 5th grade and, lived in a world he ended up, having to fend for himself and all this. And I'm sure that had cascading effects on, he had a son out of, like, he did get shotgun marriage. So I won't say out of wedlock, but he didn't really take care of that son at all. And then he had my father, but he was a mean guy to my father. And I don't think he had, it all comes from that moment, where his mother died at 6 years old. And I think about that 6-year-old boy. What would that 6-year-old boy, she died of whooping cough. Today there's a vaccine for whooping cough and nobody dies from it. What would that 6-year-old boy have given for there to have been a vaccine so his mother wouldn't have had to die? Anything is the answer. Anything at all. And vaccines have been proven time and time and time again. They prevent death. Smallpox used to be something that ravaged people. Doesn't exist anymore. Literally does not exist. Measles, polio. I mean, people talk about polio and rubella time and time and time again. I think about my 6-year-old grandfather and what he would have given. What right do I have to say no to this? People talk about God. Listen, God made human beings, if you're a believer in God, and gave them the intelligence and the ability to develop these things. Vaccines are therefore a gift from God. And you are saying no to it. You're crazy.
That's well said. I agree with everything you said. And I think that's where it becomes difficult because, we're saying the same thing, which you and I don't quite understand why people don't get vaccinated. But at the same time, we agree that, people have a right to make that decision anyway. It's just the thing that
I just don't get it.
Yeah. They could prove it with phone records. I think that might be part of an earlier thing. C-Stars, can you give me a little bit more context on that, by the way? But it's I think what I get confused about is where is the why now with COVID, the COVID vaccine, and how it's impacted our lives versus, let's say, the we talk about the vaccine for smallpox, mumps, and the stuff that we've always taken for granted. I think in schools, do you need to be vaccinated in schools or not?
Oh God, yes. You have to have certain vaccines to attend. I mean, you never had to have the flu vaccine, but there were certain, like chickenpox now, of course, measles. Again, there's religious exemptions, but those were always a very tiny percentage of most attenders, because there's a herd immunization rate, right? And if you get above like 85% immunity, then the thing disappears, right? There's a threshold, and before COVID and before it got all politicized, most diseases easily 85%, because if you actually had, I would love to see somebody get the bubonic plague or, something, the kind of diseases that people really got. COVID, if you don't have it, or most people get a mild cases of it, you think, oh, what's the big deal? Like, think about like the things that would, like the Middle Ages plague was a consistent thing, and people died. You were fine one day, and then you were dead a week or two later through a painful, awful, disgusting disease. Take a look at that and tell me you don't want the vaccine. Yeah. Of course you bleeping do.
Well, we'll see how things progress, and we're not going to, just everybody watch, we're not going to spend every week talking about political issues. I really wanted to bring that one up. It was something I wanted to talk to you about, Dixon. But everybody stuck around. And by the way, just Coco, imagine going back 100 years, you would love to have access to today's health care.
Precisely.
Even then, I was, and we'll maybe talk about this another time, but I was watching a physicist. It was a physicist. It was Sean Carroll. He was doing his podcast, and he was talking about how the fact that we could live not forever, but death is not necessarily a certainty based on how other animals live. Right now we haven't solved death, but it's not out of the scientific realm of possibility to believe that we can, come up with the medicine to make us live for hundreds of years. We aren't there, but the science
that'll be a population resources problem, won't it?
Well, it's there's going to be a lot of rich white people hanging around. It's going to be expensive to live forever. But it's interesting to see where we're going with science, and that's, I just want people to follow the science and just pay attention to, if you're saying no to a vaccine, what are you saying yes to as far as your other medication? What side effects are you getting, and what is the impact to everybody else? You don't take your heart medication. Okay. Yeah. You're impacting yourself, but this is a bit different. There's a bit of, you've got to think hard about what saying no means. And if you're saying, "Oh, I'm not going to get a vaccine because it doesn't stop you from getting ill," well, that's not necessarily how vaccines work anyway. You know, there's people that I know that, you know, are getting them because if they do get it, they want to not go into hospital and possibly die. You know, they want to be able to be more prepared to fight it. But I don't want to get on a soapbox because that's not what our channel is about necessarily. But anyway, thanks everybody who's tuned in this week. It was a bit of a relaxed chat. We're still deciding on what's going to happen for next week, but please tune in. And again, if you've made it this far, for the love of Christ, why aren't you subscribed? I just don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, please do like and subscribe, and we'll catch everybody next week.
Yes, bye all.
We need a sign off, by the way.
We do.
All right, we'll do bye. Bye.
Bye.